Welcome to the I Help Men Dress Better podcast. My name is Shlomo Hamnick, and on this podcast, we help men better be seen and remembered, not only by their peers and others, but also seeing themselves and remembering who they are. So today, I'd actually like to dive a little bit into that and touch on a concept that I keep mentioning in previous podcasts that I'd really like to speak about, and I still haven't gotten to it. So today's the day. We are talking about pleasing or people pleasing versus pleasant. And before I get into the meat of the topic, if you could please ring the bell, hit the subscribe button, whatever platform you're on, give this a like. It would really go a long way to helping me. And if you've gotten benefit from my previous podcasts, if you anticipate learning something today, which I'm trying to make my content as accessible and valuable as possible. That is something that I'm working on week over week. So if this does give you some sort of value, if you could give back in that way, I would really appreciate it. And it would go a long way to helping this message and helping men once again see and be remembered, both by themselves and others. Pleasing versus pleasant. There's this idea in style, and people will say this a lot, which is, wear what you want, dress how you want. And that concept, while correct, it requires a little bit more work than I think people hear it. So anyone who's built skill in their style, on the back end, they will generally be dressing the way that they want to. And so sometimes they forget that on the front end, a lot of the times, they were dressing how they wanted to as well. But it wasn't with the aesthetic skill that they built in that middle period. And back to trying to keep on topic with people pleasing versus pleasant. I think one of the things one of the problems that this causes is this idea of, dress the way you want and don't worry about what other people think, as if those two concepts exist at opposite ends and you can only really be one or the other. So, either you are dressing to serve other people, to be pleasing to other people, or you are purely for yourself, you are doing things for yourself, and there's no consideration of others. And true style, like real style, it really exists between. I think, like most things in life, the truth lies somewhere in balance between two opposing forces. So in this case, it would be people pleasing versus like just rabid individuality. Like I do things for myself, like almost antisocial, right? So like people pleasing, hypersocial, just bending over backwards doormat versus, just completely antisocial loner, no social cares. And style exists somewhere in the middle. I think many of us fall towards one of these two poles. I know that for myself, earlier on in my life, I relied a lot on other people's approval, and style helped me move away from that and trust myself. But it was also important that I never lost track of the fact that I live in a society. I know it's crazy, right? So how do we balance these two energies, right? How do we find our style between these two poles of, fully giving to others and fully antisocial? Or you could refer to it as, the individual versus the collective, right? The collective is it's just about everyone else and fitting in and, being part of this broader system with, the sacrifice of your individuality versus purely self-expression, all about you, with the sacrifice of the collective and the broader interests of the community and humanity. And I think that the way that I would describe it is pleasant. So people pleasing versus pleasant. Pleasant exists between these two because it's understanding that I have to do for myself. I have to be myself, right? I have to live with myself from the moment I'm born till the moment I die. I have interests. I have things that give me energy. I have things that I'm good at. I have gifts that I could give to the world if I committed myself to them. I have people who could benefit from me. And there's all of this that we all have. And to lose sight of that would be terrible. But in order to make all of that happen, we also need to connect with the collective, right? I am very fortunate and I'm, working my dream, which is helping people with their style, helping people with their confidence and their self-awareness and being more seen and valued and remembered. And as much as that's my personal goal and it's just me against the world and it's very off the beaten path and unusual. It's not a common pursuit. But I could not do this without the help of society. I could not do this alone on so many levels. You know, I am relying on thousands of years of human history that we have developed to this point. I'm relying on, I live in America, I'm relying on the freedoms that America bestows. I'm relying on the financial situation in my country, the freedom that people have to actually sit and think about how they want to present themselves. You know, in the past, a lot of people did not have as much freedom to think about how they wanted to present themselves, to move up between classes and really make such a impactful difference in their lives. So I could very selfishly just look at, I'm pursuing my dream. But if I forget that there is this entire social world that is supporting that dream, then I would fail. So pleasant exists between those two poles because it's chasing your dreams and being authentic and giving your gift and understanding that there is a cost for that and that cost isn't bad. The cost is meant to be hard because it makes it, that is what gives meaning, right? The same way that death is what gives life meaning, the cost and sacrifice of our endeavors is what gives our individuality meaning. So we get success by helping other people. We are supported and helped by other people. And so we exist in this continuum between us, the individual, and the collective. Serve ourselves too much and chase our individuality too much, and we will die alone on an island. And chase the collective too much, and we will kill ourselves in order to feel safe. And we don't want either of those, right? We would like to be very much alive, be very much ourselves, be the most ourselves that we can in our lifetime, and serve the collective and appreciate and value the support of the collective. Style itself could not exist without the collective because anything that we are wearing is relying on history. It's relying on everything that it took to get up until this point. So that's garment development and, past styles and fashions. Anything that happened before now has also created language. When we get dressed, I like to talk about a lot how style is language. That language was established. When we are looking out into the world to find a piece that represents our rugged personality, that has been laid out by decades and centuries of clothing that came before it. Style can't exist in a vacuum. It cannot be purely 100% individual, but it can be just like language. The words are accessible to everyone. We all share the English language, but we get to write something using that language that is personal to us, and that is going to resonate with certain people. It is going to say certain things about us, and it is going to resonate with certain people. And style is exactly the same way. So, on the one hand, pleasing would be wearing what everybody else is wearing. Anytime somebody criticizes what you're wearing, you immediately have to, reset. you're trying to just dress to please the collective and get their approval, which, spoiler alert, you almost never get. Like, nobody's ever really happy. Everyone's just judgy, and judgy people are judgy. That's really it. The people who are willing to judge you and say harsh things about your appearance, they're never gonna stop. That's not going away. There's no way to please them. You're never gonna make them happy. On the flip side, if you go too far to the other end, you will lose all the people. You will push more and more people into being vocal negatively, right? It's almost like, if you're always kind as much as you can be, there will still be people who, scream in your face. But if you walk around screaming in everybody's face all the time, more people will scream in your face, including people who never scream in anyone's face. So all this to say, the way that you dress, it is important that it reflects authentic, true things about you, values, things that you value, things that you care about, your mission, your goals, who you want to become, right? You can dress a few steps ahead. You can have a vision of who you want to be, and you can guide that vision by dressing a certain way. But it always has to be rooted in the norms. It still has to have one foot in the collective. It still has to be language that people can understand. It does not have to be pleasing, but it is valuable to you to be pleasant. It is valuable to you for people to feel good in your presence because of the way that you dress and present yourself. The experience that people have with you, the way that you make them feel in your presence, is important. It is not every man for themselves. Not only that, the way that we interact with ourselves does not happen in a vacuum. So it's not even that the individual exists. The individual is a farce. The individual is a misunderstanding of what the individual is. We all exist interpersonally. We are social creatures. And so when we make other people feel good in our presence, they give us positive feedback, which in turn makes us feel good about ourselves, which in turn gives us more energy to put out into them, which gives them more energy to put out into us. And we're able to build ourselves up that way. So the social world and being pleasant is the key to positive self-esteem. That is what pleasing is chasing, but it is missing it because there is no individual for the person to like. There is this ever-changing, amorphous, insecure, unreliable thing that is pursuing their approval, but there is no person just saying, "Hi, this is me. I'd like to give you a good experience. I'd like you to enjoy being around me. If we don't get along, we are cool, but here's who I am. Here's who you are. Let's get to know each other, see if we work out." Versus pleasing or just, "This is who I am. Take it or leave." I hope you enjoyed this episode. Not certain how I want to land this plane, except to say, in all areas of your life, when you see an extreme, always ask the question, what are the two extremes and what exists between them? Because for most things in my life, I have found that the answer is maybe not directly in the center, but somewhere in the continuum between two opposing ideas. So if you find that you are someone who is more pleasing and you are only concerned with what other people think, or if you are someone that is hyper individualistic and you don't care what people think, both of you would stand to benefit from adding some of the other element to your style. So if you are hyper individualistic, finding a way to be more other focused and pleasing, pleasant. And if you are pleasing, finding a way to be more individualistic and differentiated and a full person for people to connect to. Thank you for joining me. I know that there are so many other things that you could be doing with your time. And so I really do appreciate you taking the time to join me, and hopefully you learned something. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I would love to hear your feedback on this idea. If you have any feedback on just the podcast in general, that'd be great too. But yeah, let me know, what came up for you while you were listening. If you want to actually connect with me, hit me up on LinkedIn, Shlomo Hamnick. bright pink banner. Well, actually, my banner, I have darkened the pink banner. It is a pink banner. Right now, my profile picture still has a bright pink background, so that will still catch your eye. But go connect with me there, go follow me there, and feel free to DM me. Always answering my DMs, so definitely get involved. Comment on my posts with your thoughts. I answer all my comments, and I'd love to start a conversation with you. Take care, have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Maybe you'll even leave a comment about what you want to watch next time.